Hi everyone, welcome to Matt's Uke Theory. This week we're going to be having a look at the circle of fifths. Now the circle of fifths is an incredibly powerful and useful tool for composing and understanding music. Some people can be intimidated by it because it looks like quite a scary piece of music theory, but actually it's really simple once you grasp how it works, and it's incredibly useful in terms of your playing and understanding of music. So some people think it was invented by Pythagoras. Some people think it was a guy called Nikolai Deletsky in the, I think, 1600s, who used it as a compositional tool. I think he was the first person to actually physically write it down onto paper. Now, all the circle of fifths is all the 12 notes in the Western world. You can think there's 12 hours, 12 hours in a day. There's 12 notes in the Western chromatic scale. If you're not sure what that is, look at my first music theory video and it's all on there. But basically, all these notes going round to the right are a fifth above the one that precedes it. So let's put that to the test. You can literally do this on your hand if you want to. If we count 5 notes up from C, and we have to include the one we start on, that's really important, we'd have C, D, E, F, G. So G is a fifth above C. Let's do another one, G to D, G, A, B, C, D. D is a fifth above G. Just to prove that it works, let's do one more, D to A, D, E, F sharp, G, A. There's an F sharp in D, but it doesn't matter. D, E, F sharp, G, A. There's your fifth. And if we go the other way around the wheel, this is kind of like a byproduct. It's not completely by luck. There is some science and maths behind it, but I'm not going to explain it now because it makes my head hurt. But just know that if we count backwards, anti-clockwise around the circle of fifths, we have a circle of fourths. So every one of these going backwards is 4 notes above the note that precedes it. So C to F, C, D, E, F, it's a fourth. F to B flat, F, G, A, B flat, we have a fourth again. So incredibly simple once you realise what's going on. And what we tend to do is we put the notes around the outer ring. These can also be thought of as chords, if you think of chords that make up chord families. And these, if we're thinking in terms of chords, are all the major chords. And on the inner wheel, we have all the minor chords, and those are the relative minor chords to the majors. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, the fifth is one of the most important intervals in music theory. The first kind of harmonies that were written, going back to the church, the first harmonies that were widely used were an octave. So from a low C to a high C. And that came about because they had choristers singing like this, and then they introduced choir boys, and choir boys couldn't sing this low, so they sang this high instead, and that was one of the first harmonies that were born. The next, and this all comes back to something called the Harmonic Series. Again, I don't want to go into that today, too complex for now, but just know that the next kind of harmony that we get is a fifth, and that's the next most important harmony. So we could have a C and a G, harmonises beautifully together. We could have an F and a C, harmonise beautifully together. And the fifth is incredibly important harmony as well, because it creates tension. We've talked about this in other videos, but if I was to play this chord as a seventh, this G, the fifth always makes you want to go back to the 1. So you have that tension and release, 5-1. I could do the same with C7 to F. So it's an incredibly important interval in music. Now, how does this help us understand and play music? There's many different ways we can use it. The first and the most basic way is to put together scales. So if we think of if we think of this as like a cheese and tomato pizza, and we take a nice slice out of it. Let's take this slice here, this FCG slice, top three pieces. Now, all these notes are the notes that make up whichever note is in the middle of that slice. Here we are, C in the middle. All these notes are the notes in the key of C major. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A. Now there's one missing, isn't there? We've got 6 notes there and there's 7 in a scale. And just to be awkward, the 7th note, if you follow the line down from whichever one you start on, C, and go all the way down, to the right of it will be the 7th note, B. So the scale of C is C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So it's really useful. You can work out your scales. The F major scale, F, B flat, sorry, getting them in the wrong order, sorry guys. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and if I follow the line across, the 7th note is E. Now, if you're not sure which order the notes go to create that scale, literally it's just alphabetical. So if I'm starting from C, I know the next note in the scale is going to be D, and the next one's going to be E, F, G, A, and that's how they go together. So you can work out scales just by using the circle of fifths. Absolutely brilliant. Print one off, keep it in your bag. Another thing, if you think of chord families like scales, and again, there's another video on this earlier in the series, we can work out chords that fit together in a chord family in any key. So in the key of C, we can see we have 3 major chords, C, F, and G. And we have 3 minor chords. We've got D minor, A minor, and E minor. And then if we follow that line down, we have this one, which would be the kind of diminished chord. But don't worry too much about that for now. In fact, in a 4-part harmonisation, it would be a half diminished chord. But just know this is some form of either diminished or half diminished chord, which is an unusual one. But there we go. We have all the chords that fit together in the key of C in that slice, and then not forgetting the diminished one down there. In the key of F, the chords that fit together are F, G minor. Then we could have A minor, B flat major, C major, D minor, and then if we want our kind of unusual diminished chord, we would come down here to this E diminished chord. So could do some form of diminished chord there for this one. Okay, so there you've got your chord families, your key families with all the chords that fit together, which is incredibly useful. Again, brilliant resource already, rather than having to flick into loads of books to find out which chords fit together. There's another thing that I love with chords with the circle of fifths, which makes it absolutely brilliant. And that's that it neatly puts together, and this isn't a coincidence, the most common chord progressions in music. So we've already learnt in the last couple of videos that the 2 most common chord progressions in music are the 1-4-5 progression, 1, 4, 5 in any key, which just means the 1st, the 4th and the 5th chord in a key, and the 2, 5, 1 progression, which is just the 2nd, the 5th and the 1st chord in any scales. And brilliantly, the circle of fifths put these neatly together for us. I'll show you what I mean. If this is our 1 chord, so we're going to do the key of C first, I've already told you that the 5th is 1 step around to the right. So we know that the 5th chord is G. And I've told you before, 1 step to the left, how cool is that? Is the 4th. So the 1-4-5 progression in the key of C is C, F, G. So if I was playing, I'm going to turn them all into 7ths to make them a bit more groovy, but I'm just going to play C7, F7 and G7. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, cried all the time. Here's the 4. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Back to the 1, cried all the time. Here's the 5. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit. 4, and you ain't no friend of mine. Back to the 1. One of the most famous chord progressions of all time, 1, 4, 5. Now, there's another brilliant one which is really, really useful. Let's just give you another example of that, just to really hammer it home. Let's look at different key. So in a key of G, okay, G is going to be the 1 because that's where I'm starting. 4 is going to be C because it's to the left. 5 is going to be D because it's to the right. So I could do exactly the same song starting on G. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, see, crying all the time. Here's the 57, where you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. So you can start putting together all these progressions just by using the circle of fifths. It's absolutely brilliant for that. Do you remember that old chestnut, the 2-5-1 progression that we were looking at last week? Well, brilliantly, the 2-5-1 progression is very similar, but it starts in a different place. In the key of C, a 2-5-1 progression, we just go 2 to the right and we work our way backwards. So 2-5-1 in the key of C is D, G, C. 2, 5, 1. And that one we looked at, I think, last week. The 2 in jazz tends to be a minor 7, so I could play a D minor 7. 5, a G7. And then a major 7 or some form of major chord for 1. That's one of the most famous progressions of all time, isn't it? 2-5-1. 2-5-1 in the key of F would be G, C, F. 2, 5, 1. We go 2 to the right and we work our way back. So we could have a G minor 7. That's the 2. Followed by a C7 for the 5. Followed by some kind of F or F major. I'll do an F major 7 because it sounds nice. 1. So 2, 5, 1. And that works for any key. In the key of D, 2, 5, 1. So there we go, 2 of our most famous chord progressions you have right there, and you can use this to work them out, which is really, really nice. Now, another useful, brilliant thing about the circle of fifths is transposition. And I've kind of already given you a hint of it already, haven't I? Let's have a look at one of the most famous songs that we ever play on the ukulele. 5 Foot 2 Eyes of Blue, okay? 5 Foot 2 Eyes of Blue. Now, 5 Foot 2 Eyes of Blue has a very famous chord progression. And the chord progression is the 5 of the 1, we call it, where it cycles backwards through the fifths. And it was kind of invented by Gershwin when he did I Got Rhythm. He wrote this brilliant B section to I Got Rhythm, which went E7, A7, D7, G7, E7, A7, D7, G7. And it's been copied and used for like loads of bebop songs, but loads of trad jazz tunes as well. In fact, one of the most famous ones that we all play on the ukulele, I bet you've all done this at some point, is 5 Foot 2 Eyes of Blue. And if you know that song, you'll know that the chorus for 5 Foot 2 Eyes of Blue, we turn these into 7th chords just to create movement. We don't have to, but it just creates movement. 5 Foot 2 Eyes of Blue, the chords to the chorus go E7, A7, D7, G7. You can play along if you want, if you've got your uke. Let's go nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, E7. isn't her. Now if you run into a 5'2" covered with her diamond rings and all those things, bet your life it isn't her. I think I got the melody wrong, but you get the idea anyway. Now, what I'm going to do in the next video, because we're running out of time in this one, I'm going to show you how using this circle of fifths, you could play that song in lots of different keys. So if it's too high for you to sing, too low for you to sing, we can change the key. And there are other benefits which I'll explain as well in a little while. So I will see you